The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
Live tonight from iRacing's virtual Richmond Raceway, we say good evening, SimRacing fans, and welcome to round 17 of the 2024 Full Throttle Real Sim Racing Cup Series. Well, the final off week all season long has come and gone, and now it is a 4-week sprint to close out the regular season and set the grid of 16 playoff drivers that'll fight for the Full Throttle Cup in 2024. And as always, happy that you're spending your Monday night with us right here on RaceSpotTV. Our producer downstairs is Joshua Lee, and alongside Derek Watson, my name is Evan Pasoko, and Derek, it is Richmond, Michigan, Daytona, and Darlington on deck to determine who's in and who's out.
Isn't this sort of fitting, Evan? 4 classic, iconic NASCAR tracks. When you think about the history of NASCAR, you come across these 4 names: Richmond, Daytona, Michigan, and Darlington. What better place to decide who makes the grid than 4 historic landmarks?
In the last couple of weeks leading into this Richmond date have been interesting. Peter Irons stole a lot of the conversation. Back-to-back race wins at Nashville and Pocono. Agnew Phillip back at Victory Lane, our last time out at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Race winners across your top 7. Those drivers are locked in. Now we start to look towards the bubble. If anybody below that red line were to get a race win, they would leapfrog. So Papanow, 28 points. That's a relatively healthy margin, I would say, over Brett Larson. But if anybody below him could pull out a win, and with Daytona on the calendar, those chances remain high. He's in an uncomfortable spot. So I think if I'm anybody in points, I'm aiming for about P15, the spot that Steve Soa and Austin Cooper tied for at the moment as kind of the benchmark.
Yeah, I'd even probably go P14, really, because I mean, with Daytona coming up, that of course is your one wild card, and then there's Darlington, which who knows what happens there. It's a really, really tough track. But I agree right now, if you're anyone Grant Davis down, it's probably win or not in a few weeks.
And tonight going to be a tricky challenge. The short tracks on the NASCAR Cup Series side of things have been a bit of a struggle in these next-gen cars. It is going to be equally, I think, as bit of a challenge for the drivers here tonight. But to your point, it is just a classic NASCAR track as we get set for 200 laps here at Richmond Raceway. Conditions as well inside of the sim. Going to be racing into the evening here, so we'll see if that makes it an effect on anything. You can see track conditions. The in-sim temperature set to hot again. It's not too hot, 87 degrees. A little bit more than that if you count the humidity in, but mostly cloudy. Going to keep things muggy and cool, and those temperatures will drop as we race into the night. As we're also taking a live look in at qualifying, the aforementioned Peter Irons top of the board at the moment. But a name we haven't seen in a handful of weeks is up there as well. Kevin King, right now P2 on the speed charts.
Yeah, and there you go. We talked about how wild cards can happen these last couple weeks, and chaos can happen, and things can get interrupted. Well, returning drivers can definitely be an impact on that. You see the 29 car get off the corner pretty well up against the wall, and quickly back down to the brakes again here, right in the very bottom of that line. Look at it, almost hugging the yellow line here, Evan, and it gets it back out, and we'll cross the line here. Let's see where he lines up. Yeah, still P2.
Yeah, no improvement there. King going to keep going around for some extra laps of a little bit of bonus practice. We now look at the number 28 machine. That is Cody Harris. He is on hot lap number 1 in the Drip Designs Chevrolet Camaro. He was with a 22.530 second best in practice. Where does he go in qualifying? First lap 22.955. There's some work to do. Can he pick up on his second trip?
Well, let's find out. I noticed out of 4, Evan, in that last time around. Thought I saw the car wiggle as he was coming out of the corner. Let's watch it again here. It's going to come up out of this corner. And does he have better throttle control? No, not really. There's still a bit of a wiggle there. And that's probably going to cost him as I take a look at the board. Oh, P3. Nice job. He did a 22.487.
So a good time, good enough for third on the board. Soa, Kane, the only 2 drivers who have yet to put down a time in qualifying. They are not currently on the racetrack. I do not suspect that they will put down a time. They will start from the rear based on a provisional, and it'll probably be about 18th or 19th on the grid, and that means that Irons may be safe at the top of the board for another pole. Kevin King, I think, was aiming to participate in the Pocono race, wasn't able to do so in the end. He's looking to make his second start of the season. Again, his lap time's locked in, and I don't think we're going to see any more movement on that scoring pylon.
No, it seems pretty safe at this point. But let me give you a controversial opinion here. If I'm Cody Harris right now, Evan, I'm probably stoked that I'm P3 and not P2. I think starting P2 on the start of a race is the hardest thing in all of sim racing. I'm probably, if I'm Cody Harris, I'm pretty happy.
Yeah, he gets to avoid, are we calling it the Blaney line on the outside of the front row? We'll see if it pays off for him in the number 3 spot. You take a look at some of your past race winners here at the Richmond Raceway. That includes Mr. Agnew Phillip, who won the race right here earlier this year on March the 25th. Richmond, one of just a handful of racetracks that gets 2 dates in this current RSR Cup Series schedule. Well, qualifying has drawn to a close. Let's go trackside and take a look at your RSR starting grid, and it is another pole position for Peter Irons. He will bring us to the green flag tonight. His 22.398, the best of them all. What can Kevin King do? His first start from Daytona, going to be on the outside of the front row in second. Back in third is the number 28 machine of Cody Harris for the A51 Pro X Altus group, and in fourth it's the number 2 Flat Out Esports machine of Sam Nieto. And back on row 3 in the number 5 starting spot, the 20 of Brandon Gass, in alongside in P6, the 44 of Michael Araya.
We'll pick up in P7 with the 12 machine of Ross Cato, lined up side by side with the 21 of John Ross. Then back we'll have Cam Patterson in P9 in that 10 machine with Dalton Randolph beside him in the 26. And then Eric Papineau and Thomas George 11th and 12th.
Continuing on through row number 7, looking at 13 on the grid, goes to Agnew Phillip. He's got some work to do to go for the sweep here at Richmond this year. Braden Whitaker to be alongside him in 14th. Grant Davis starting in 15th position tonight. Mike Maddox will start in 16th, and then the final driver to put down a time at qualifying. Bradley Burke was top 5 in practice, slowest of them all in Q. He has some work to do from 17th, and then Soa and Kane, the drivers who will start based on provisionals and will roll from the tail end of the field. Well, as always, these Monday night races, 50% race distance compared to the NASCAR Cup Series. That means tonight's race clocks in 200 laps, 150 miles. Total distance, halfway bonus points going to be dished out at the conclusion of lap number 100. And then some of the things that never change. Fix setups, 4 tires, full fuel capacity, and up to 3 attempts at an RSR overtime restart should we need it. That is the tail of the tape here from Richmond. They'll go one more time around before letting them loose.
Yeah, here we go. Give everyone some moments to kind of get loosened up here, get comfortable, think whatever you need to think about. But Evan, the key tonight will be throttle control on the front straight. It sounds so simple and almost like obvious, but when you get out of turn 4 and you want to mash that throttle on the front straight, it's going to be very, very difficult, and it can be very just chaotic when it happens. If you get around there too soon, you'll loop that car around. So whoever can control the throttle the best will have a great night here.
We'll see if patience is key or if aggression is going to be what puts drivers in the best positions. All I know is, as always, it is going to be a long one. 200 laps at Richmond is no walk in the park. We're happy to have you strapped into the virtual seat and along for the ride with us. Pace car down and in. The number 1 car starts from P1. Let's go racing at Richmond. Lap number 1 goes in favor of the pole car. Irons leads. In second spot is King. No changes through the top 4.
Yeah, no changes so far. Everyone's kind of getting their groove together. No need to make big moves yet, Evan. As you said, 200 laps now. They will move fast here. We'll do about almost 3 laps a minute here under green. But right now, look at that one car of Lost Kid. Up high there, you see the car in the back of your shot. Possibly is up high. This one person out of the groove doing their own thing.
You'll see as everybody else comes off orderly the corner, he's back there the first little bit of 2-3 wide back in traffic. So I don't know if it's a struggle early for Cato. He dropped 2 spots, or if he's intentionally trying to ride that higher line, whereas everybody else lined up single file. And now there are the issues for Cato. Lost a lot of speed that time through turns 1 and 2. That car got up and into the outside wall, and he is having his hands full early in this one.
Yeah, that's what happens sometimes when you get up there and the track's maybe not rubbered in, or, it's just not a comfortable spot with the fixed setup possibly, and just lost the car and tapped that wall. Nothing too major. Listen, at a short track, watch it here. That's what happens. Got a little too high, and the car just kind of come around, and mostly just the back end got hit. Hey, good news. We're at Richmond. Aero's not as important as it could be.
Could always be worse. These cars can probably take a bit of a lick and keep on ticking. Drivers, though, I'm sure would like to avoid having some theatrics early in their race for sure. Looking at the battle for 4th position right now, it is the Keystone Light number 2 Ford of Sam Nieto. He started in that spot, but Michael Laraya, one of the few drivers on the move early. He was able to make a pass on Brandon Gass on the opening lap of the race. Now on the inside of the 2, trying to get another one.
And a strategy you have to think about why these drivers are not making big moves, Evan. This is a track where that gas tank is going to last forever, it feels like. So there's not a chance here to come quickly get tires if you burn them off. If you burn up your tires early, you're going to have a long night ahead. I guess either hoping for the yellow or waiting for that car to run out of gas.
So Laraya has to reload, try again. Some other drivers making some moves. Agnew Phillips started 13th. He is up to P8 on the scoring pylon, and not too far behind this group either. Let's take a second look at Steve Soa, 75 car, way sideways on his own. And there was a bit of a touch from Cato. No caution, 2 cars only. We stay green. Ironically enough, that's the same spot on track that Cato nearly had a bit of a self-spin. That's the only reason he was back there. So it's caught 2 drivers so far, that point in between turns 1 and 2.
Man, kind of want to think Barney the Flagman was on like a coffee break there, Evan. I know Richmond, and iRacing is known for being a little loose, might be the word, with its calling of yellow flags. But wow, that was a big one here. That was I thought for sure that would have been a caution when I saw the replay happen, but nope, here we are. So we're back to live racing here, watching this battle here. But this is the upfront battle here. This is going to be Irons, King, Harris, Nieto, and others in your view. Well, I don't know if you got a chance to catch any of it Saturday night, Evan, but good news, we will not have as many yellow flags as the MX500 event.
I was not so fortunate, but I will take your word as truth and hope that I can only imagine what the MX500s would have been like at Martinsville, having done a 24-hour race there. I think I'm tapped out on that. But listen, we've seen some of the short tracks, and it was more so maybe 2-3 years ago the Martinsvilles of the world actually started getting taken off of a lot of the Cup Series private league schedules on the sim because you were getting 17, 18, 19 cautions. I think some of that has toned down a little bit with the introduction of the next-gen car that was kind of peak end of the Gen 6 era. But it just goes to show that even if these cars are a little bit tighter on these fixed setups, a little bit harder with kind of air quotes in the air, meaning it's a little bit harder to differentiate yourself from somebody else, that there are still moments where they can jump out and get you. We've highlighted the problems for Cato and Soa. It is worth noting DeAndre Kane, who had no time in qualifying, has not taken the green flag yet. So he currently showing up as a DNS. If he does end up on track, we'll let you know.
Yeah, and I agree with you, though. I think the racing quality for short tracks has gotten a little better over time, especially in the league section. What that may be that the league admins have gotten a little more strict, have maybe come up with some creative rules about how to handle the caution process and assigning blame in whatever way your league handles that, or maybe vetting your members a little better. But I think it has gotten better. I mean, RSR has known, knock on wood, to have some long green flag runs. This is not a surprise by any means. But when you start a race here, you have to have it in the back of your head. Listen, this could be one of those races where I have to quickly make moves because we could go yellow after yellow after yellow. But right now, we're pretty green here. By the way, Evan, top split Friday night, MX 500, 46 yellow flags.
Cool. That was far worse than anything I had conjured up in my head.
Yeah. Broadcast split with Arjuna and others, I think, was 32 Saturday night. So, yeah.
Well, I will tip the cap to those who volunteered to be a part of that one as we keep watching the battle for the race lead that has not seen Irons be able to build much of a gap at all. In fact, those top three all over each other. Battle for maybe fifth behind as they continue to work through some of the lap traffic. But Kevin King may be the fastest man in Richmond, Virginia right now. He's been putting the pressure on the one of Peter Irons. Curious if he decides to make a move early or if he's going to kind of force Peter into overdriving that race car. Kevin King made his bread and butter when he started racking up race wins in this series in 2023 by outlasting cars on the long runs. So the less we slow down and the more we stay green, I think the more it's going to fall into the wheelhouse for one of the seasoned vets like Kevin King.
The question is in my mind right now with these setups as we watch this battle here with Sam Nieto and Michael Laraya is how easy is it to pass, or what does Kevin King need to do to pass? In other words, does he just make the move on the outside? Does he wait for the leader to kind of slip up and ride up the hill? Or do we have to come back and see a moment of the infamous bump and run?
Had some notable bump and runs here at these hallowed grounds over the years. I feel like if you bump and run somebody at number 20, they may come to your house and have a discussion about it, maybe a little bit later on, to be expected, but we'll see. And it's not just Irons and King. Cody Harris started third. He's been steadily right there as the third car. He's kind of the caboose of this three-car breakaway. And then the Nieto-Laraya battle that had been going on for fourth, that's kind of where you get that first big jump. There's about a second between Harris in third and Nieto back in the number 4 position. But all is quiet on the Western Front for now as these drivers try to settle in for a green flag run. Already 22 now, 23 laps in the works of this 200 lap contest.
Yeah, I see a small bit of a line change right there between these two cars you see on the screen here, and that could lead to a pass in the corners if you want to ride your car up that high. That's going to be Gas and Agnell Phillip here. I was a little surprised, Evan, to see where Agnell had qualified this car. And, you know, obviously, I mean, up in P7 is a strong run. Not the big, dominant, like, charge through the field we're used to seeing from Agnell Phillip, but I'm sure he'll find his way to the front as the time goes on.
He looks to the inside there. That's Brandon Gass, who he's got lined up in the crosshairs. Last time we checked in with Agnell, he was up 5 spots. Now he's up 6, looking for another to the inside. Gass sees it coming, leaves the inside open. Can Phillip complete the pass down low, though? Lariah struggled to do so on the Yetto in the earlier battle for 4th. And Agnell not going to just stroll on through here either. Now to the inside of the 20. I think the 94 is better. I think it's going to help, but even without Gas kind of pinching and making it harder, Phillip takes a whole trip around before he's finally through and clear, and move Agnell Phillip up to the number 6 spot.
There we go. And so Agnell even used a bit of that bump, by the way, to kind of get Gas offline and kind of rattle him a bit. So you see that move already happening a little bit. I do agree with what you said a moment ago, though. The key to a bump and run is almost more of when you do it versus how you do it. And we'll talk about towards the end of this race if necessary, but if you're going to bump and run someone for the win, you better make sure they don't have time to get back to you and repeat that process. Well, here's your battle for the top 3, Evan, and everyone's basically running the same groove as we watch here through this corner speed 1 and 2 here, and everyone's just about the same line. There's really no variance, so it tells you that the line they're running must be the preferred groove for right now at Richmond, because there's no variance.
Everybody very even as they run now. Irons as an example, just because he's your leader, fastest lap of the race, a 22.543 on lap number 3, and has been running pretty consistently, high 23.1s, low 23.2s. So you've already got your 0.7 of a second to fall off, but it kind of happened pretty quick, and we'll continue to monitor those to see if they continue to burn off, if anybody can save and improve over the run, or if this is going to be a large track position battle. One note, talking about drivers who have had issues, you see Mike Maddox's car now scored all the way down in the number 18 spot. That car has come to pit road, so Maddox, who started 16th, has had to pull off of the racetrack. He is not yet behind the wall, but already 10 laps down for all intents and purposes. His night's done, so Maddox joins the growing list with Soa, George, and Kane with some early headaches.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what comes of that, and if we can find out maybe why it happened. But I noticed a moment ago he had pitted. Now in a very long, he's been down there, I think it's almost 4.5 minutes. So, of course, at a track like this, you want to stick it out, though, Evan, if you can, because, listen, a track like Richmond could cause some wrecks, and maybe you pick up some points later in the run, you know, depending on what happens. So you want to stick it out as a competitor and see if you can make up points. We talked about how important that cut line was for some drivers, and we see how points could matter here in the next 4 races. Well, Evan, so far a pretty quiet race overall. You know, things just kind of trucking along. You look at the pace of the leaders. Last time by 23.3, 23.3, 23.3. So Irons, King, and Harris are basically doppelgangers of each other at this point.
Just in a trend. And looking at their times from practice, a little bit more variance. Obviously, you get like a 30-minute practice session, so some drivers may try to use that as a field run. Other drivers will kind of do mock qualifying times. It's hard to take definitive information out of a session like that. You know, but worth noting, they've all been in a similar spot. And there you see the intervals. They kind of just trade back and forth between in the green or the yellow, but they are all by 2 100ths, you know, 3 100ths, 0 100ths, and then a couple of outliers, a 10th here, a 10th there. But I mean, everybody is so even. I feel like we're talking about the cars being too even on an actions detrimental episode, right? I mean, all the cars right now, same speed, but We are seeing Peter Irons start to separate himself. 36 laps into the run now. Kevin King no longer challenging. In fact, he may have to play some defense soon.
Feels like Kevin King's backing up more so than Cody Harris is catching. With all due respect to Cody, it feels like King is just backing up this car, and I'm not sure if he's just having a hard time with the tires, maybe if he's burned something off, or if he's wants to lay back here. I don't know, but look at you, right? That gap is increasing here as time goes on, and see Cody Harris now starting to ride a little high. That tells me I think that means that Cody Harris thinks he's a little faster than Kevin King and can get around him, because look, for the first time we're seeing a deviance in this sort of parade line.
And if you're Cody Harris and you do feel like you're better than King now, and you're watching Peter Irons pull away, the race lead now over a second for the first time in this Richmond 200. Does that get your blood pressure up a little bit? And do you decide to force the issue? Do you try to make Kevin King either make a mistake or throw it to the inside, be aggressive, do something? Because if this race goes green to the end, that's always a possibility. The trends would suggest it will not happen, especially we've already seen so many drivers have some issues on cold tires with some self-spins. You would think something may happen at some point in this race. But if not, and you let Peter Irons walk away to a 2 to a 3 second advantage now, you may never get that time back. So if Harris is better, I would suspect him to make a move, but just not really able to find an opening right now, and Irons continuing to walk away.
Yeah, as I look at the timing interval lap by lap, I mean, Harris and King keep swapping by less than 1/10 of a second about who is faster, one versus the other. So if you want to make a move as Cody Harris, that less than 1/10 of a second just isn't going to mean enough to make a move here. So he's going to ride in line. Listen, if you're Cody Harris, this isn't exactly a drafting track. Maybe you save an oomph of fuel, behind Kevin King. Maybe that matters on the green flag pit stop or yellow flag pit stop, whichever we have here. But yeah, you're right. Irons is really pulling away. Last time by Irons, a 23.48. The other two, King and Harris, up in the 23.5s. So the tire fall off is becoming real.
You're watching them continue to fall off as they sit right now. The battle for 9th position, one that is ongoing. Grant Davis up a handful of spots. We've talked how impressive Agnew Phillips +7 is, but give credit to Grant Davis +6. Bradley Burke also in this trio as he puts the pressure on Patterson, also at a +6. So if Davis can, or I should say if Burke can make this pass right here, he'll be tied with Agnew Phillip for the most cars passed in this race. He's under the 10 of Patterson. Again, the outside always going to get the runs off of the corner, but the 19 should be able to break away on the entry to turn number 1 if he can carry the speed in. Let's see. Patterson doesn't want to make it easy, though.
No, don't want to make it easy right now with how big a gap we're seeing in the field and the difficulty of passing. You definitely do not want to make a pass easy. You're never sure when or if you'll get that chance to get it back here. And there it is. There's the clean pass, and another one done here at Richmond.
So in the end, turn 1 is the key spot yet again, and he is now officially 7 spots to the good. That is tied with Agnew Phillip as the biggest mover in this race. Davis was able to pull away a little bit from those two in the battle for 9th, while they fought behind for P10. So Burke's got about a 1.4 second difference to make up. Meanwhile, for Irons, it is clean racetrack out ahead. You can see the sun starting to dip behind the grandstands in turn number 3 as we race into the evening here virtually in Richmond, Virginia. Already about 7:12 p.m. in sim time. It'll be curious to see just how truly into the night we get as this race continues to progress, now just a few laps away from 1/4 distance.
And what a benefit that is to those drivers, by the way. We did an onboard about, 20 laps ago, and you saw the sun glaring right down that windshield on the back straight. But you're right, with the sun setting, now that's gone. So for drivers who have the ultra-high graphics with the HDR setting turned on, that glare will kill you on the back straight. But yeah, look at that, mostly gone here. Beautiful sunset happening up there. Of course, if you're a driver, probably don't want to focus on that. Let us do it. And you worry about what's ahead of you here at at Richmond. Now, the other thing to talk about here, Evan, I would think it can't be too long before we find our first bit of lap traffic here at the short track. I think I see it in the front of that camera shot.
Yeah, Russ Cato's been put a lap down, but he's had some issues. So they've passed cars, but not really a car at speed. And it's a relative term, but Whitaker and Papadow just traded 12th and 13th position. Whitaker down the last car on the lead lap. He's only going to be about 7-8 seconds up the road. And with the speed differential at which those two cars are running, you're looking at maybe 12 to 18 laps away from dealing with some traffic as Irons continues to be the best by a large margin. Again, looking at the fight for P2, what does Cody Harris do, if anything, trying to get the Drip Design Chevrolet under Kevin King with 50 laps complete?
Yeah, taking a look here to see what we have is that top-bottom shot here, and see if we can find a line here. There's a bit of a difference here to the inside of King, but now backs it off.
Well, they're not going to get to Whitaker in 12 to 18 laps because he is down pit road for service as the battle for the race lead continues. On the top of your screen, Braden Whitaker's night is done. Mike Maddox's night is done. 2 more to the DNF list. So for a quiet start to this Richmond 200, a surprising amount of attrition has happened thus far. Meanwhile, again, P2 is some of the best stuff on track. Agnew Phillip, Michael Araya, they do battle kind of in the number 5 spot. Ross and Gas not that far apart for 7 and 8, but in terms of passing opportunity, here we go. He's on the bottom. Can Cody Harris get all the way by?
Yeah, did a great job slowly squeezing that car to the bottom line, kind of just making room for himself, and now they're side by side. Now the question is, as if Peter Irons hasn't pulled away long enough, Evan, how long do these two fight like this, and how much more of a gap do they give to the race leader fighting like this? And man, it's close. Harris is doing everything he can not to get squeezed down, and he is being fought as hard as humanly possible by Kevin King here.
Looked like he got his left side tires on the yellow line off of turn 4. The car wiggled a little bit, and that was all the opening that Kevin King needed to drop back down in front and re-clear him. So just what I thought Harris was going to be able to break through. A slight self-inflicted bobble opens the door once more, and now he has to start again from scratch, looking for the run off of turn number 2. Now to the inside, I should say into turns 1 and 2. That 29 car not necessarily pinching, but also not giving a whole lot of room, and there just wasn't enough arc there for Cody Harris to get that car to rotate.
And here's why I like what Harris is doing. Harris is trying to make a run, and if it doesn't work, he's backing it out, Evan. And some people say, why? Why not fight harder? Why not stay there side by side? Because look in the back of that camera shot right there. Look at that number 2 car entering the picture. Every lap that King and Harris are going to fight side by side is another lap that Sam Nieto will likely outpace them. And all of a sudden, the 2-car battle becomes a 3-car battle. I think it's harder. Hey, look at this. This is the view from Nieto right here. And see, man, they're closer than they were a few laps ago. So if you're Sam Nieto, you're hoping they fight all night long.
If they continue to do battle, it betters your chances, and he's kind of got the best seat in the house as he watches another look to the inside for Harris. King still determined to fight for this spot, to not give it up, but only 5 laps ago, they were 2.5 seconds behind Irons. Now they are 4.5. These side-by-side laps are nuking the lap times for the cars in 2nd and 3rd. Harris, it goes in front to the quarter panel. Not clear as the RevGrips.com Chevy King stays on the outside of him.
That may be the furthest ahead Cody Harris has been right here. Look almost up to the front quarter panel. And now they're side by side down the front straight here. That's what Harris does in this corner. If he can dig it in deeper, he does. It needs to slide it up. There he is. He's completed the pass here, finally, on this lap.
So at long last, the pass has been made. It is the first spot gained for Harris in the 59 laps completed in this race. Also the first spot lost for Kevin King in that same time frame. And now the damage, in my opinion, has been done. 4.5+ seconds Peter Irons over your now P2 runner, Cody Harris.
So I was trying to think to myself as a strategist, Evan, what would I say to Peter Irons if I was working with him on his box right now? Part of me says to say, hey, Peter, you're doing great. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. Part of me says, hey, listen, Peter, you got a 4.5 second lead. You know, you don't have to push so hard. Back it up a little bit, save some gas, save some tire. You know, don't let them get close, but, 4.5, 2.5, I don't know. Maybe back it up and save a little bit of that equipment.
It was also interesting when we saw Whitaker come down to the pit lane. I thought, could somebody dare be going for a 3-stop strategy? That one proved to not make sense once we saw Whitaker decide to go to the garage and end his night. So that was off cycle. So of those cars who are at speed and have not had issues, we have yet to see anybody come down to the pit lane. We are about to be at the 1/3 distance marker in this race. If you're going for the 2-stopper, if anybody wants to shake it up, we would see them down pit road rather soon. If everybody goes with what I would think will be the popular call of a 1-stop strategy, then it makes the math a little bit easier, and they'd be pitting probably right after those bonus points are paid out at the lap number 100 mark.
And the fear I think about making the 2-stopper, besides the fact that it is 2 stops, Evan, is the what if here. It's a short track, which means if I come down and I pit right now, between the time to my box, the time in my box, the time off of pit road, getting back up to speed, I'm likely to lose 2 laps here. Maybe a lap and be right at the edge of 2 if I'm lucky. But then if that little pesky yellow flag comes out, I'm stuck. And if I'm stuck 2 laps down, the lucky dog does nothing for me. It might get me to 1 lap, but it doesn't make me feel like I'm competitive back on that lead lap. I would be, if we were like a 1.5 miles, like a Michigan, what's a 2 mile, but like, what I mean? Oh, look at that. Speaking of which, I see some cars down pit road, by the way, but
Kevin King.
That's Kevin
Not
King.
just any car.
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't see the up run at first, but well, there you go. There's your first one. Now, Kevin King has to hope that this cycle continues and finishes before if or when any yellow flag were to come out, or he will be stuck here as he has to go all the way to the front of the pit road here to find his box.
It would really be fun to see this strategy play out if we do get fast race cars on both calls. So many times you'll see a couple drivers go off strategy or take the strategy which is not the one the leaders are going for, but it can only be so enthralling if it's a top 15 car. But I mean, Kevin King can legitimately win this race. Maybe it's an audible call, right? I mean, I think maybe if King's on the bumper of Peter Irons like he was for the opening 30, he doesn't come down pit road, but that elongated battle with Cody Harris put him 5 seconds back. I don't think King can be 5 seconds faster than Irons based on what I've seen so far tonight on the same strategies. So maybe this is a kind of spur-of-the-moment decision to get off cycle, get away from cars that he was fighting with for position, and try to change it up.
Could also be a math problem, right, of what is the fall off for tires. So if Kevin King, for example, believes the fall off is 0.5 second, let's say, on these tires, does he believe that 0.5 second a lap right now equates to a gain when all is said and done? That would be the question here. But look at this battle near on track here. This is Michael Laraya trying to defend this spot here as we come down through 1 and 2. It's both cars again down to the bottom of that line and tracks all the way back out to the wall here. So right now it's just Kevin King, I think 1 or 2 others, but the majority of the field seems to be stuck on the 1-stop call.
Those 2 who came in, Burke and King, were on the money exactly at the 1/3 distance marker in this one. King, obviously, not a full-time competitor, not likely to be a top 25 spot in the points to qualify for the playoffs, is here to win a race, so he does not really care about foregoing the bonus points that would be available at the halfway point. That's a bit of added context as well, as Brandon Gass makes the switch with Michael Araya. Those 2 cars passed each other in the opposite order on lap 1, and they have now recycled back to their original positions as Papanow on pit road left of your screen.
By the way, of note, I talked about the number of laps down, and the difference here in their pit road strategies and how it worked out. Kevin King 1 lap down, and let's see, where did Brandy Burke 1 lap down as well? So actually, both of them got away with only being 1 lap down here. So right now, Cam Patterson set up his lucky dog, but maybe you get a wave around. Who knows? So that's a positive for these drivers. Look at that way different line there. As you see, I think there's Agnell Phillip up there in that middle line, trying now to find a way around. And here comes the fast car of Kevin King. Wow, look at that.
King on fresh tires is going to be blowing the doors off them like you're watching a multi-class race, and that's, again, just the better rubber as he makes easy work of P4 runner Agnell Phillip. Agnell actually now in the number 3 spot, having just made a move on Sam Nieto prior to that pass by Lapped Car King. So Phillip, P3, the highest we've seen him so far tonight.
By the way, talked about the difference in fall off on tires. I was looking at the leaderboard here. Kevin King last time by Evan, a 23.119. Let's see, Agnell Phillip, who he passed, a 24.017. So almost a full second difference on these tires.
And for Irons, I know we checked into his lap times earlier, mentioned his best with a 22.543. He's running 23.773 last time. So the total tire fall off for the cars who have not pitted at about 1.2 seconds and change. It's about double what we saw after the first 10 laps. So it seems like they lost about a half a second on speed pretty quickly, and then lost that second half of a second a little bit more progressively over the course of the 60 laps that followed, as Phillip works around Sam Nieto and as well Cam Patterson, going to get passed by Brandon Gass. So that Tend Machine doing a good job of getting out of the way as Patterson continues to fall down a lap. We have only 8 cars right now scored on the lead lap, and if we assume that the majority of the field is going to make the one-stop strategy at halfway, they'd probably come down right at the end of lap number 101. Remember, it is the end of lap 100 that pays out those bonus points. So if you were to come down pit road coming to the end of that lap, those bonus points would be determined based on where you are once you cross the line actually on pit road.
Yeah, so that's why you want to stay out as long as you can there. I thought maybe a small bump there to run that car up the hill, and then we'll see the pass on the bottom here. Beautiful pass, big wide open area here. And now going to come down the back straight. You know, Evan, I mean, this track, I said earlier, is a historic racetrack, been a part of NASCAR, been a part of eNASCAR. In fact, at one point had a Coca-Cola team, an eNASCAR Coca-Cola team, and really the Richmond's been a big supporter of sim racing.
They've been involved back from the Richmond Raceway esports days and still have a presence as well, but this facility has been so involved in iRacing and of course at that eNASCAR level, so always fun to see them around and in the community. As a pass for position inside of the top 5, that was Brandon Gass around Sam Nieto. So Brandon Gass looking good late in this run. He's passed 2 cars in the last 10 laps or so. First Lorian, now Nieto. Could be making a charge back to the top 5 after he slipped out of those spots earlier in this race.
And it makes you wonder if Brandon Gass is just more of a long-run driver. I mean, those exist of difference in drivers at every level, you know, and then we're down from your newbie rookie classes of iRacing up to pro level. Well, you'll see a difference where some drivers are great at the short runs. They get out there, they burn up their stuff, they get passes done, they get to the lead, but maybe they don't have the tires left for these long runs. Then you'll see the opposite. You'll see maybe a Brandon Gass who just kind of comes out here, bides his time, doesn't burn anything up, and then as people start dropping through the field from tire wear off, he just kind of slowly sneaks his way back into the picture.
Also worth noting, which is kind of random, but NASCAR breaking news a little bit, right? You were talking about how involved Richmond Raceway has been over the years in the eNASCAR scene, and it was news just now coming out. Parker Retzlaff, who's obviously a top-level pro sim driver here on the service, but is also doing a lot at some of the top levels of the NASCAR ranks, will make his NASCAR Cup Series debut here at Richmond this weekend upcoming. So just kind of fun timing that you mentioned the racetrack and how it has so many ties to sim racing, and just saw that news from Parker Retzlaff starting to trickle out.
That's good. Congrats to Parker. Parker's been a long-time sim racer. I've had the chance to interact with him a few times, and so congrats that he had this season or last season had a full-time ARCA ride at one point. So great. That's great. That's always cool to see when drivers who listen, at this point, Evan, I mean, you see it more when you do your eNASCAR work than probably some people do, but the number of names that are getting involved in real-life NASCAR due to first starting with all the studying and the work in sim racing is an increasing number compared to where we were even 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Yeah, it used to be kind of a rarity. I don't know if an oddity is the right word, but a rarity to see somebody who was a top-level sim driver who also did something in real life, and it was often drives the late model at their local track or had some Bandolero experience or Legends cars or this or that, and now it is legitimately drivers competing in all three of NASCAR's National Touring Series and in a host of other regional series all across the country. So it'll be exciting to see Parker Retzlaff make that start with the MBM Motorsports team this weekend at Richmond, which should open the way for him as well to drive their Cup Series car at the Daytona International Speedway a little bit later on this year as well. So some fun sim to reality news that is semi-relevant to our conversation about the unique place that Richmond Raceway holds in the eNASCAR and iRacing space. 10 laps to halfway this time by. Driver radio chatter starting to pick up as drivers are thinking of points. Remember, the top 10 will cash in points when we cross halfway. 10 points to the car in first, 9 to second, 8 to third, so on and so forth until you get to one single point to the driver in P10, and that would right now be Bradley Burke, who, remember, came down pit road, is on the same cycle as Kevin King, who's also back in the points in the number 8 spot. But funny enough, Burke would get a bonus point despite being a lot down, just the way things run at the moment, as Kevin King continues his march through the field by passing John Ross on the inside for 7th.
Yeah, and kind of finish up that last talk for a second and wrap it up, and we can move on here. It would be sort of remiss of us to talk about moving from sim racing to real life racing and Richmond even involved and not discuss Martin Truex Jr., the first person I really remember to kind of make that move, from the old NASCAR racing in 2003 and kind of get some practice in there. And of course, retiring this year at the end of this NASCAR season. But he's had some success at Richmond over time, but sort of the first person I remember to ever make the move before it was popular.
Watch it, Agnew Phillip fight now with Brandon Gass. Gass has been one of the best cars late in this first stint. He's passed a handful of them. And now Agnew Phillip, who has done nothing but go forward tonight, has peaked at 10 positions gained, may finally lose a battle for position, as Gass has been super impressive and is now looking to crack into the top 3. Both these cars, in fact, running lap times pretty close to the leader. Just they're stuck at about a 9.2 second deficit into turn 1. This has been where the passes have been completed all night long. He gets clear, but leaves the outside open. So Phillip drives right back up alongside him.
Great job here in this race and this battle between these two drivers, and great job by Gass to get himself up to the spot, as you said. Look at that big almost gap there, but I'm able to fulfill it. Now, as far as you said earlier, and you were correct, more passes made out of this turn right here, and that's because with the difference in banking on the back straight, and there really not much banking at all, it's easier to get on the throttle here on the back straight and kind of get a run going when we come here through 3 and now 4 with this banking on the front straight. As I said at the start of the show, if you mash the pedal right here, you can find yourself mowing the lawn in about 2.2 seconds.
It's real easy to do so. We saw, of course, a couple drivers have some issues early in this race. They happened to, really early. I mean, knock on wood, haven't seen a ton since then. So I may end up chalking up some of those challenges to maybe cold tires as well, influencing some of those struggles. But certainly, this racetrack can get you if you slip out of focus for just the briefest of moments. As 2 laps to go to halfway, Peter Irons looking to cash in on some points. Agadil Phillip not waiting for the points. He's got a plethora of them already. He comes in before the points will be paid out for what will be his only stop of this race if it stays green.
And a great thing about that Agnell Phillip move here, we talk a lot of times in a lot of broadcasts about how open air and open traffic, open racetrack is a king and such an awesome feeling as a race car driver. Well, if he pits 2 laps off cycle, Evan, he'll get a moment while they're all pitting of open track and just being able to get around there and do what he wants to do. So we'll see how that plays out for him. But here's your race leader. In a way, sort of a happy moment for him that we've not shown him tonight, because it means he's had a pretty calm, cool, easy night. But in a way, it almost feels bad that we don't show the leader sometimes, because the battles are deeper in the field than what they're going through.
Now back underneath gas is Kevin King, who pitted what has now been 34 laps ago. These 2 cars are not on the same strategy as one another, as Peter Irons has indeed decided to come down pit road. His points have been cashed, and now we should see a big flock to pit road. Irons is in, Harris is in, Nieto's in. Kevin King goes to the race lead and will lead his first lap of this race.
Now, right now, if you are maybe Brandon Gass, who was following Kevin King, you can't let that moment get to you. You can't let that feeling of getting past get to you. You have to remind yourself, listen, he has to stop again. So whatever advantage Kevin King puts on the field here in the next, 2, 3, 4, 5 laps, eventually he'll give up, because he's going to have to pit again. And now these drivers will have the better tires and the faster laps than Kevin King. The question now is, how does it all come out in the wash?
And that's what we're going to have to look and see. King, we would expect him back down pit road in about 30 laps from now, and then he would recycle this whole process. He would drop to the rear, he would have the better tires, he would then try to chase everybody else back down. But King has been the better car for the last 37 laps. He's been the one faster than everybody else. Now it'll be a role reversal as everybody else comes down pit road to get serviced. They will have better tires. They will then chase down and try to catch Kevin King. Only waiting on Grant Davis and Ross Cato. Those are the only 2 cars who have yet to come down pit road tonight. Davis working 104 laps and counting. He still stays on the racetrack right there in the 24 car P2.
By the way, working on a story here that I haven't really fully confirmed yet, Evan, but I do know that Cody Harris had a much longer stop than his competitors, and I believe he got caught speeding onto pit road because he has about 40 seconds longer stop than his competitors. So I believe Cody Harris just got caught speeding on the entrance to pit road. I noticed he fell down the boards really quickly here when we were going through the pit cycle, and I was wondering where he was going to come out. And I believe his speeding in just barely caught him.
It is a fine line with very little margin for error. Let's wind it back and go on board with Cody Harris in the number 28 car. This is coming to pit road. You can see there a little bit close to that outside wall. Pit road speed here is 40 miles an hour, and maybe that was all it took for the 28 car to be too fast in, and did make a second trip down as he has cycled now 2 laps down to the race leader Kevin King. Is a bit of a moment there down the back straightaway battle for what is 9th at the moment. Michael Loraya with a bump and run. You called for it at lap number 10. It took to lap 107, but we've got our first one. He moved him out of the way to keep things going.
Well, listen, based upon the way the paces of this race are going and the way that it's been shown to be proven to be difficult to pass here, Evan, I don't think that's the last one we're going to see tonight. I think that we'll probably see a couple more as the night goes on as far as the bump and runs. But as you hinted at earlier, it's about when you do it. And I think that will be probably a last 10, 15 lap kind of move for the most part. We'll see how that plays out later here. But now we are halfway through the field, or halfway through the race, pardon me. And really, everything's been kind of calm, You know, you and I have not heard a lot of tempers from the drivers for the most part. Everyone's been kind of collected and cool. It's just sort of weird for Richmond.
Yeah, quite the antithesis to what you would expect when you think Richmond. You think big mistakes, crashes, drama. There is still plenty of time for that. But with 90 laps to go, what seems to be a long-awaited trip to pit road for Grant Davis finally happens. That car is down pit road for service, and now it is only Ross Cato who is yet to come down pit road. That car obviously had issues earlier on in this race, is a couple of laps down and is kind of off cycle with the leaders. But once that Fast Forward Esports Ford is in, that'll put a bow tie on everything. And now the battles for position are no longer that car's off the lap or whatnot. They're all pretty much for position. Peter Irons is up to second. He's 19 seconds behind Kevin King, but remember, Kevin King has to make another pit stall. So does likely Eric Papanow and Bradley Burke as the other two drivers who are on the two-stop strategy. We believe expect them to come down pit road at a little over 20 laps time. When that lap counter top left of your screen says 66 to go, that would be the magic number for them to come down.
Yeah, that would be the number that they would need. Of course, I mean, the window's open for them any time now. They could come down, but you're right. I expect them to kind of run it dry and get everything out of that vehicle they can. And when that happens, that leaderboard and ticker board will drastically change. A lot of these 1 lap down or 2 lap down cars will gain a lap just because Kevin King, I almost said Peter King, the NFL reporter. That's a different person. But yeah, so here we come around. Just watching some racing here and watching the really one thing I'm surprised by. I know I brought up a couple times. I've been surprised, and maybe it's because of the I don't know if it's the lack of cars or what it is, but there's not been really a second line formed. A lot of times you'll see the need for a second line to form at Richmond, and enough cars will attempt it that it sort of gets manifested into reality, if you will. But right now it's kind of a single file race. Here's Sam Nieto and Brandon Gass. Brandon Gass had an amazing run through the field. We got probably in the lap, 80 through 100. Finds himself back in P6. If he pulls that off again, Evan, he could easily find himself up on the podium tonight.
And forget what I said, by the way, about 66 being the magic number. Kevin King has cut this stop short. He was only out there for 50 laps after doing 67 on his first stint. But Kevin King is in for service now. It does mean that he has to take less fuel on. It also means that he will be on the oldest of tires compared to everybody else for a lesser amount of time. So Kevin King is off, and now it is almost a complete invert. He was about 19 seconds ahead of Peter Irons. As he exits pit road, he's about 17 seconds behind him. I get the logic between, if you pit now, you're losing less time, right? The longer out there he stays, the more time he loses. But also, the shorter you come in and pit, the shorter your stint is, the lesser your tire advantage is. If he did a full fuel run, he'd be looking at a 30, 35 lap better tire advantage. But because he pitted sooner, yes, he's got the fresh rubber. But Irons, Philip, Nieto, those guys were on pit road just 17 some odd laps ago. So that advantage is going to be less so in favor of King.
But the difference here may be in where the thought process might be from Kevin King. If you wait and you run this gas tank out, you probably don't need to get a full fuel pit stop in. Therefore, you don't really have the time to justify waiting for all 4 tires to get put on that car. So why not go ahead and get tires now when you can sort of justify it? The longer and longer we get into a run, the less you can justify sitting on pit road for those new tires. I agree with you. I'm surprised it happened, but that's sort of where that mental math game has to be played out in your head about what if, and you sort of carry the one and cross the T's and do what you got to do. I'm surprised. Listen to the old analogy of you made your bed, now go lie in it. Once you commit to 2 stops, I think you have to commit to 2 stops.
Committed to the bit, maybe mix it up in terms of stint length, but we'll see how it shakes out for him. It is worth noting that there was no immediate response from Eric Papadow, who was also on the same strategy as him. Bradley Burke was just on pit road. That was about 3 laps ago. Bradley Burke also pitted early at lap number 67 with King. So there is one driver who either took note of what King did and decided to respond, or just simply had the same idea as him. But both King and Burke short pitting their second stint on the two-stop strategy, I should say. Eric Papadow has not done that yet. He sits in P8, likely one of the only cars who still has to pit before we go the distance, and he is on pit road now as King to the inside of the number 19 car. It's going to be a long trip up front. This ain't for position, but every time King has to pass somebody, it's going to take a little bit of time out of it. He's 14 seconds back of P1.
Yep, so we'll keep an eye on this battle and see how it goes here. And you're right, there's so many variables in that equation of being off cycle with your competitors and what do you do. And we're only going to know what happens and what was the right or wrong answer when we're at the end of the final lap and a checkered flag is waving. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still confused. I think I like the Eric Papadow move better. And we'll see what happens here. Ooh, a little bit of connection problem for Kevin King. Got it worked out there. Probably freaked out his competitors behind him for a moment. Well, Evan, now we're into the later parts of the race. Now all you can do is drive the laps. You got to think for everybody, except for Papadow. Maybe pit stops are done. Unless the yellow comes out, there's no new tires. There's no brake. There's no nothing. It's just now a matter of turning the laps and seeing where it all comes out in the end.
Yeah, it comes down to just kind of closing it out, and that's not to undersell the 74 laps that are going to be left in this race, but if Peter Irons and if Kevin King get to have what I think they both ironically enough want, and that is that this race just goes green to the end and there are no further dramatics and it just is allowed to play itself out, and we can see in the end who made the better strategy call. Is the two-stop going to be the winner, or is the one-stop going to be a winner? There's always a chance. You get those tricky late race yellows, it changes things up. All the strategy goes out the window. We hit the reset button and we start from scratch. But every once in a while, I think a strategy race deserves to have itself play out. I would be very surprised, with the law of averages in mind, if the two-stopper would work. And that's nothing against Kevin King, but with only 3 drivers of the 18 taking that strategy call, logic would suggest, Eric, that if 3 drivers out of 18 decided to make one call and the other 15 drivers decided to go for the other strategy, more times than not, the decision of the masses is the safest or the best strategy. Not often anymore these days on the sim do you see 1, 2, 3 cars go off cycle and surprise everybody.
Yeah, that's true. I would agree with that comment that not very often do you see a single car or a couple cars do something different and win. I would agree with that comment completely here. To see a nice battle here. They're going to let Kevin King on by. Just let him get on around here. But to me, it's more of a math problem. It's more of a, you're down pit road twice. It's 2 pit stops versus 1 pit stop. The delta involved makes me hard for me to believe that you're going to pull this off unless you have enough time for both runs to get those 4 tires on the big tire advantage. But right now, Kevin King does not have that difference in laps he had before. He doesn't have that 1 second gap to play with the field here.
King is all the way up to the number 3 spot. The gap is down to 10 seconds. Last lap, King was 4/10 of a second better than Peter Irons. Of course, if he maintained that type of pace all the way to the end of this race, he'd beat him by 17, 18 seconds. But remember, King's tires will start to fall off at a bit of a quicker rate than Irons's will. That differential between the two of them will start to slightly get closer and closer. I think Agnell Phillip, having pitted 36 laps ago to King 17, I think Kevin King gets back to P2 in this race. And then it takes us back to that battle that Kevin King had for P2 right early in this race when Peter Irons was only 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds ahead of him and Cody Harris at the time. They fought aggressively for P2. By the time King split off to start the two-stop strategy, he had gone from 2 seconds off of the race leader to 5. Well, if Kevin King can get anywhere inside of 5 seconds, you may have to look back on those early battles for P2 that did not seem that consequential at the time as possibly being a difference maker in who ends up with the trophy tonight.
Yeah, I agree. That has to be considered a moment to take back and ponder and ask yourself, was that the right move? Should I have just let Cody Harris go and maybe made it that time later? And that may be at the end a very, very detrimental moment here. So right now, if you're Kevin King or Agno Phillip, you're sort of hoping that Peter Irons has just a moment of lack of focus, I guess is the right way to say it. I mean, listen, this is an easy track to do it here. As sim racers, Evan, we'd love to have our water bottles nearby, or maybe a small snack, or a friend to talk to in Discord. And these laps move fast. And the moment you get your car settled in the back straight, it's time to start braking again. So if you try to grab a bottle of water or something, there's not a lot of time here to do it. It's easy to lose your focus at a track like this.
Kevin King almost caught up to Agno Phillip. That pass on the docket for a few laps from now. Brandon Gass was so good late on the previous run in this race. Can he continue to be a good car that picks up and benefits late in the run? Of course, Peter Irons has been one of the very best since joining this series a little bit late. The consecutive top 5s has been the story for Peter Irons, who is, despite limited starts, only having started 6 races, already a 2-time race winner, already a top 20 car in the standings. His finishes this season in order: 5, 5, 4, 1, 1, and 3, and has really been a great X factor to what had been an Agno Phillip domination to the point.
Yeah, very much a domination in that moment. You see read his stats off. That's impressive to have those numbers there. I mean, all those top 5s, all those doing well. And here's Kevin King, by the way, making another pass on the inside.
Gets through easy enough on Agno Phillip. He is back into second. And now the question is, with relatively clean racetrack up the road, only 2 lapped cars between he and Peter Irons, can Kevin King bounce back, use the alternate strategy, and steal this race win at Richmond? Going to be 58 laps to go the next time by.
Well, big props to Kevin King. Listen, no matter what happens with the race win here, Evan, give him credit for now at least. This 2-stop call is going to put him at least up to P2. Now, his other fellow comrades and Bradley Burke and Eric Papanow maybe not having the same success with it that he did so far. But, I mean, if you can pull off a 2-stop versus a 1-stop and still come out P2, it's not exactly a bad day. That's not exactly something to hang your head about.
See the last lap times: 23:406 for Irons, 162 for King. It was maybe a dozen or so laps ago that I had mentioned King was consistently 0.4 better. He is still better, but again, that gap closes down to 0.3, so it's just a matter of, does that gap run out of juice before the end of this race? Kevin King is making me a believer, and I was pretty skeptical when he split off, but this is looking like it is doable for the driver of the 29, and maybe silly on me for doubting somebody with the accolades of Kevin King.
Yeah, making a believer of both of us, right? I mean, I was more surprised by how early that second stop was. Not so much the 2-stop idea, but see that 29 machine coming around here and doing a great job. If you're Kevin King, I guess now you just need Peter Irons to get caught up, maybe by 1 or 2 lapped cars. Maybe someone just move out of the way fast enough, or Irons has a hard time passing, and you try to keep closing that gap here, because right now Kevin King is still about 0.3 of a lap faster per lap than Peter Irons.
Again, an update on some of the drivers that have had issues. You see all those outs at the bottom of your screen. Maddox, George, Randolph, Whitaker with DNFs. DeAndre Kane didn't even make it to the grid. And then a handful of drivers multiple laps down with issues. Cato and Soa, the notable ones, who both had some near wrecks. And I think in Soa's case, basically a whole wreck early in the race. Avoided a caution flag for it. This race has gone green, and those two drivers being paid back with their determination. I know it's not as good for Cato, who started this race in 7th, to be running 13th, but Steve Soa could have packed it up after he spun that car. He stayed on track and is now 4 spots in the green from where he started by staying in this race and passing those cars that have gone to the garage.
Well, I think the two big names of that story are Soa and Whitaker, because when we showed that graphic to start the broadcast, Evan, about the points, and you talked about the bubble and the cut line and who was where and the what ifs and everything, Soa and Whitaker were on, I believe, opposite sides of that line. Soa needs to stay in the race and keep getting points to keep himself above that line. Whitaker, however, now has basically put himself in a must-win scenario. If I was Whitaker, I would have tried to stick out here, Evan, and gain every point possible, because I have to think now it's Daytona or bust for the playoffs for Braden Whitaker.
Yeah, that is the objective. Everybody wants to be a playoff car come this time of year. Watch the battle for 4th on screen now. Big slide from Nieto opens up the door. Gas to the inside. He is clear. These two have had a couple of battles tonight. Will Gas get the last laugh as he is through to P4?
Man, Gas has done a great job in both runs here late in the run about just finding a way through the field. And listen, a P3 and a podium is not a bad day here if he can pull that off. And right now he's up in P4, about 7 seconds off of P3 and Agno Phillips. So there's enough time. We'll see if he can get up there and make it happen. But look at that, the lights are fully on. It's fully dark. You see the kind of the reflection of the lights off of the track, Evan. This is what I think of when I think of Richmond racing.
We started with a sunset behind the grandstands in turn number 3, and it is now short track racing under the lights. A little bit of a glow still down the back straightaway, but we talked about the changing conditions as well. Track temp has dropped about just a little bit under 8 or so degrees from the start of this race. You can see the track temp pretty stable at about 91. I think it was right in that ballpark where it started, but as it's past 8:30 in sim time now, those outside temps have dropped down into the low 80s. When this race started, it was much warmer than that. I don't think it's going to get any cooler than that, though. This race should end before 11 o'clock in sim time. That's the next time the forecast has the weather dropping any further. Continuing to just kind of watch the numbers and see. And if I'm Peter Irons, I'm starting to get a little bit nervous. It is now sub 5 seconds. That was the benchmark that I had said to look for when Kevin King splintered off and went on his own strategy. He was 5 seconds behind Peter Irons. So from that point to now, because Kevin King is now only 4 seconds off, King has been better. His strategy has been faster than Peter Irons' strategy from that moment to now. But you don't have to just beat him to win the race. You got to beat him by 5 seconds. Your strategy's got to make up that 5-second delta, and that is still what's to be determined. But Kevin King putting in an honest day's work and now into the mid-3s.
Well, I think the more important point, Evan, you don't have to just to get to him. You have to pass him, right? That's maybe the battle we have here with a few laps to go. Is what's catching Peter Irons and passing Peter Irons. Maybe 2 separate news stories as well. So we'll see once King gets up there, how much easier it is or not easier it is to get around Peter Irons. Irons here is going to kind of get through the front straight here. Got a couple lap cars at Subway right ahead of him. We'll see how he handles these cars, if he gets around them easier. And if you're Peter Irons, you don't want to challenge him, maybe just sit back if you can, because, listen, right now, you need to gain every second possible and not get held up. Difficulty making a pass.
Here's a good split look at those top 2 cars. There is some traffic on the horizon for Peter Irons. Steve Soa, lap down car should not be a factor and should be able to yield to him. Lariah could put up a bit more of a fight, though, because Lariah is the last car on the lead lap right now, Derek, in P6. Even if it's making life difficult for Irons just to put another 1 or 2 laps on the board. If a yellow were to come out, Lariah's life would be a lot easier if it was as a lead lap car. Of course, first car lap down would get the lucky dog, but a lead lap car gets the pit with the leader, so there may be some incentive for Lariah to not just simply pull over when Irons gets there, whereas Soa, I think, would do so.
And not only do you get to pit with the leaders, Evan, you get to start with the leaders, right? That's the difference. We sometimes forget with the lucky dog is that, you have to pit or start the next restart behind everybody. The leaders, the lap down cars. And so in a moment like this, where there's only maybe 5, 6, 7 lead lap cars, that gap you have to try to pass someone for position is massive. That's why you want to fight for it. So you have to deal with that. But we'll see if that becomes a relevant conversation. This is backwards from Lariah. So you can see what's going on back here with him. You can see where our leader is currently. And that gap is still closing, Evan. Now down to 3.2 seconds is what it is between King and Irons. This is sort of an interesting battle in a way, right? It's sort of like, gosh, I don't want to say the old guard and the new guard, but really is sort of Kevin King's, been in RSR before, has been dominant, has shown up and won races. Now we kind of got the new guy in Peter Irons who's really come in and, pardon the pun, struck with Irons hot. And this is going to be a great battle of the old and new guard.
And it was once upon a time where Agado Phillip was that new guard, and he was instigating the established veteran, the established goat of Andrew Friedosh, right? It seems that everything has a cycle, and Agado Phillip's cycle has quote-unquote only gone for 2 years compared to Friedosh's 4. Could we see the next great RSR driver in Irons? There goes King around lap traffic of his own. John Ross, a lap down car in P7. King gets by, still a couple of cars between Irons and King, as Irons has been able to clear Soa and will now have to deal with some dirty air off of the back of Michael Lariah in P6.
Kevin King is comfortable here, turning laps, now has put a gap on Ross, and feeling good as we now come up throughout a turn 4 under the start-finish line and making it happen. So now if you're Kevin King, now you can start to manage that. And listen, he's a veteran. I'm sure he knows how. But you got to start to manage those emotions, manage that excitement, manage that everything you're having right now, because now you know that you're making up lap time. Now you know this is a reality. And you can get yourself worked up. You can get excited. You can kind of start to lose focus. You can miss a braking marker, and you can throw it all away. So if you're Kevin King, if you're me, I would say don't look at the lap times. Don't worry about the gaps. Do what you've done for the past, 167, 68 laps. Let it work itself out.
At one time, King was 4/10 better a lap, then 3, now only 2, so King's advantage slowly starting to wane. Last lap, an even lap time with Peter Irons, so we know that extra bite. The fact that King's got 16 lap better tires is slowly becoming less and less of an advantage, but he's already clawed his way so far back to get to 2.4 seconds off of the leader. Does he have enough to get just that little bit more while dealing with some cars in between and a clock that's starting to get nervous? Going to be 30 laps to go this time by on the stopwatch, Derek. That's barely 10 minutes.
Yeah, barely 10 minutes is right. I think this battle right here for Kevin King is going to be the most important one right here with Steven Soa. And seeing how easily he gets around Soa may determine a lot of details of what happens in this battle. If he has to really fight Soa, or even if he just catches Soa in a corner and can't make the line he wants, it really could damper any hopes he has of catching the leader. So we'll wait and see if or when that happens here. But you're right, that gap is slowly, it's still decreasing, just not at the rate it was. Here we're now down to 2.196 at the line last time by. So it's still closing, but not the big leaps and bounds that it was before. So the question I have now in my head, I was trying to ponder though, if you're Peter Irons, what do you want right now, Evan? Do you want this to stay green and hope that he runs out of time? Do you want maybe a yellow to come out late and get a chance to put new tires on and beat Kevin King? What do you want here? I don't know, because both of those options sound kind of terrible for the leader, honestly.
Yeah, I think either of those options could win or lose Kevin King this race. I don't think we're at the point where King can't win it as it goes green, because he takes another 0.2 of a second out of the lead right there in that lap alone. So all King needs is for 7 of the next 26 laps to be 0.2 better, and he's there, right? That's completely doable. Whereas on even tires early in this race, which you would see if we saw a caution, they'd both come down and pit. Kevin King was not better than Peter Irons, at least under the current strategy they were running at the time, because Peter pulled 5 seconds away from him off of the start of the race. So, you know, that's a negative for the yellow and a positive for staying green. On the flip side, if King stalls and can't get there, then he would want the yellow, because maybe it gives him a shot, you know, and a restart puts him in the conversation. He has an opportunity. In that case, it's a negative for the green. It's a positive for the yellow. So I think Kevin King could win, and Kevin King can lose this race still under either of those scenarios.
Yeah, and the other negative for the yellow could be, listen, look at what happened at Cody Harris earlier. Had a great race and got caught by that one black flag, and now he is still, I think at this point, a lap down and you know, basically almost 2 laps down. So that could happen to either King or Irons. Listen, you know, it could be a pit road speeding penalty, you could have a bad pit stop, you could have this, you could have that, and you find yourself back in the field here. So I think staying green is probably what both of them want in a way, but as drivers, we always want new tires, Evan.
And it really is a waiting game of a race that has gone uninterrupted through 177 completed laps thus far. Going to be decided by the slightest of margins. Yes, Kevin King still has to deal with Steven Soa, but Soa is the only car as a buffer. And because Soa pitted twice in this race, similar to the strategy that King is on, Soa is not a significantly slower car. In fact, Soa is, I think, faster than Peter Irons, your race leader right now, but what he doesn't really want to do, Derek, is pass the one car or try to pass him and hold him up. So the 75's just kind of been sitting on his bumper. That's allowing the one to kind of run his own race, but the problem is, once Kevin King gets there, then Soa's going to have to make a decision on, I'm trying to get around the one or I've got to get out of it. But it does mean it's an extra car for King to pass, and it's one less car for Irons to pass. Now, Irons not all looking pretty either, because he has Lariah, who we've talked a lot about, and then 2 lapped cars ahead of Lariah in Cato and Patterson that I'm sure are making the one car's trips around this racetrack a whole lot tighter than they need to be with all the traffic out the windshield.
Yeah, and the other thing to bring up for Steven Soa as well, which is that blue car there between our first and second place, between Irons and King, he doesn't want to be involved in this, right? He is 7 laps down. He has enough respect. He's a veteran of this league and of sim racing. He doesn't want to put himself in the headline, right? I suspect if King gets close to him, he will find a way to be out of the way, whether it be going high or going low or whatever he has to do. Steven Soa does not want to find himself, you know, on the front page of the paper in that picture, so to speak, you know, involved in the picture of the woulda, shoulda, couldas. So I'm sure that will become a moment if it needs to be, where he'll get out of the way. But for right now, look at this. Now they're 2 wide racing behind Irons, and there's another car going back there towards Kevin King.
And that was the 10 of Patterson. Patterson got passed by Irons, got passed by Soa. Now there are 2 cars between first and second place on the racetrack. Patterson, not the same car as Soa in terms of Patterson's on the one-stop strategy. He has the older tires and should be easier for Kevin King to pass. But maybe, look at all this traffic. Feel like we're at Bristol right now with all the cars that are packed in amongst these top 2 that are trying to fight for the race win. Maybe all the cars that are giving Irons dirty air and all the cars that are giving King dirty air are just making it equally as tough for both of them, right? Maybe there is no advantage one way or the other. Maybe it just all balances out. But Kevin King got it down to 1.3. He is stuck there at the moment. In fact, he lost time last lap. You see the last lap times on your leaderboard. Irons 23.9, but it was a 24.0 for King. King, the slowest car in the top 10 the last lap, as now he makes the pass on the 10 car, but that pass likely costing him more time again.
Yeah, good news for King, though. It cost him a little bit of time on that pass, but didn't cost him laps of time, right? It wasn't like he had to sit there, side by side for a full lap and really kill that time. So now we're back down to one car between the two here. But I agree with you right now. Feels like Bristol now. Right now, if you're Peter Irons, you're thinking, man, it's like Bristol. You're just kind of hoping those cars in front of you are okay. You're hoping they don't have any kind of mistake, because not only could they bring out the yellow, but this is a track known for some wild, crazy, wacky spins where if you're Peter Irons, you're hoping those guys in front of you don't spin in front of you and throw away your race.
So Kevin King's first lap at speed without traffic clocks in 2:40.14, still slower than Peter Irons. Has that advantage plateaued? And is Kevin King going to run out of time? He was once 0.4 better, but now he's 1.8 seconds back. It's been a while since he was the fastest man on the track. Next time by, again, still slower than Peter Irons again. And Irons is tucked up underneath the last car on the lead lap in Lariah. So it's not like the one's got big clean air advantage. He's in a fight of his own, and he has still stayed better. But once the one and the 44 get side by side, if Irons can't pass him quickly, then it could drag those lap times down.
There it is.
Here goes the one to the inside.
There it is. There's the battle right there. And you see, it looks like Lariah just sort of backed out. Lariah doesn't want to be part of this either. He backed out. He lets Irons go. And that, I think, closes the book. I think that writes the final chapter. Whatever, the ink is drying. Whatever you want to, it's off to publishing, whatever you want to say there. I think that did it for Peter Irons. I think that lack of battle with Lariah probably makes this unreachable here, because last time by, even with that battle, again, Peter Irons is faster than Kevin King.
And remember, if you look back from lap 66 to now, Kevin King has been the faster car by about 3 seconds. The problem was, at lap 66, King was already 5 seconds behind Irons, so his strategy has proved to be better. But in the end, it may not be better enough to make up for the deficit of an early battle. And now for Peter Irons, you start to breathe a little bit better. You've added another body between you and Kevin King. You've grown your gap back out to now 2+ seconds, but with 8 laps to go. I always say it in these races, as the leader, when you are just hoping it gets to the end, these laps around this 3/4 mile racetrack going to feel like you're running around the Nürburgring with how long they're going to take. He is just hoping to see those laps to go counter tick away, but it's going to go painfully slow from behind the wheel.
Yeah, I would say time is relative, right? Because the time that's ticking for the leader, Peter Irons, is tick, tock, that pace. But if you're Kevin King, that clock's on overdrive right now, Evan. It's just, it cannot stop running at any different speed than just overdrive for him. So great job by Peter Irons to put a gap on the field, put a gap on Kevin King. And I think the story might be for Kevin King, Evan, when all is said and done. He had a great run through the field, but I think he burned up his tires getting through the field and just didn't have enough left to catch our leader.
And again, this race not official until we see the white flag fly. That's where those nerves sit for Irons. But the gap now more than 3 seconds up. Kevin King has fallen off a cliff after pushing that car to its absolute limit. He led 15 laps. At the midway point, when we saw the majority of the field come down pit road for the one-stop strategy, can Peter Irons close this one out for a 3rd race win in 4 weeks and a 7th consecutive top 5?
Man, it does not give you so much just dominance and great feelings going into the playoffs if that's your stat line. Doesn't it make you feel like you're just, Rocky Balboa, basically, that you just can't be stopped?
Tough to argue against those numbers. And I'm sure if we go back and Look at some of Agnew Phillips' numbers from the start of the year. They'll be pretty similar, right? Race winner in Daytona. Then he won round 4, round 5, round 6, round 8, round 9. He has had many stints. Of course, from Bristol to Darlington, Phillip won 5 races in a 6-race span. That was before the Peter Irons era. And with Irons and King now as competitors to try to prevent Agnew Phillip from waltzing the race wins on a week-by-week basis, Irons sees 2 laps to go.
Man, doesn't it feel like RSR has really just advanced into the Iron Age? Doesn't that feel like where we are right now?
Peter Irons has not only showed up on the scene to win races, and maybe we've been shy to say it, but Peter Irons has showed up to be a champion. He's got 1 lap to go.
All right, just breathe easy. Don't do anything different. Don't touch the yellow line. You'll bring it home just fine.
Clean racetrack out in front of him. And the incredible rise to the top continues for Peter Irons. He will blitz him for 185 laps led. Peter Irons outduels Kevin King and wins at Richmond. 3 wins over the course of the last 5 weeks. And for Irons, now the 2nd winningest driver this season in this Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series, passing the likes of Bradley Burke. And again, now is very squarely in the championship favorite conversation. Final margin victory, nearly 4 full seconds over Kevin King. It was looking nerve-wracking. Late into it, teammate in the 20 of Brandon Gass will drive by and wave out the window. And Peter Irons will celebrate once again as an RSR Cup Series winner. Let's take a look at our full race results from this Richmond 200. Irons gets the win. King in 2nd. Phillip 3rd. We'll try to get a word with all of them in just a few moments. Brandon Gass and Sam Nieto end up inside of the top 5 tonight, with Michael Laraya in 6th. John Ross in the number 7 spot. Bradley Burke up 9 for a P8 in this one. Grant Davis 9th. And Cody Harris P10.
Going back into P11, you'll find Eric Papineau with Cam Patterson in 12th. Ross Cato finishes 13th. And then Steve Soa 7 laps down. And then we get to the cars that had trouble, Evan. You got Braden Whitaker, Dalton Randolph, Thomas George, Mike Maddox, and DeAndre Kane, technically a DNS.
It's a look top to bottom at your full race results tonight from Richmond. There were some late race scaries as well. There was a connection issue for Ross Cato on the white flag lap. That car crashed into the outside wall, disconnected from the session, but it happened after the white flag was flown, which means that it did not affect the outcome. But just a reminder for Peter Irons, talked about those nerves of getting to the end, of just how close it could have been. Nearly some late race drama. We're still waiting on your top 2 to join us, so let's start in reverse order. Agnew Phillip comes home a 3rd tonight. Derek, I'll hand him off to you.
Well, Agnew, what a night it was. A lot of great battles for you, and you finished P3 here tonight. 7 seconds back on Peter Irons. What was it like out there?
Oh, it was slippery. There wasn't a lot of grip, and just really, it was tough kind of navigating through traffic, and yeah, it was a tough race, grueling kind of race to go 200 laps. No cautions and kind of being on edge the whole time, but this is why we do this thing. It was pretty fun, all said and done. So congrats to Peter, and that was a clinic he put on there.
So looking back, Kevin King finishes P2 after doing the 2-stop strategy, pardon me. Looking back, do you think that may have been a better route, or do you think the 1 stop was still the right call?
Clearly, I think it was the better call, because, Kevin, I guess he netted out about where he was when he pitted, but I think he had a real shot there. And he lost a lot of time, on that first run, and he was able to kind of to get back. And have a chance to win. So I think it was definitely the right call. I wouldn't have had the guts to pull it off. like he did, and Kevin's also incredibly fast, and I think he got faster as the race went on too, so that kind of played to his advantage too. But I think if we had done it, we probably would have been closer. I don't know that we could have made up 7.5 seconds with that strategy versus Peter, but we definitely would have I think been in a slightly better spot, and hopefully been able to put a little bit more pressure on those guys. But well, it is what it is, right? It's a kind of regular season race. We're just trying to run out here for some experience, try to get a little bit better and get ready for the playoffs. So we'll put that in the memory bank. If we have another track where the fall offs like that, we'll know the two stop is in play.
So that's my last question. Actually, you kind of led into it already. So beginning of the season, it really felt like RSR was in the Agno Phillip era of victories and celebrations, and now we've sort of moved into the Iron Age, if you will, for Peter Irons. So how do you get yourself back in there into winning mode as the playoffs loom?
I don't think we've been doing that terribly. We've had I'm seeing your 2 wins in the last 5 races, but yeah, I mean Peter's shown up, and he's been really fast and really consistent, and he's definitely going to be a title contender in the playoffs, and that's awesome. It's great to kind of have that competition, be able to race against fast guys who are able to show up week in, week out with pace and race well. I was saying on my stream that me and him, I don't think we've really had a chance to have a real duel yet in one of these races. I feel like in each of the last 5 races, something has happened to either of us and kind of made it so that we haven't really been going head to head really. So it'd be cool to kind of be able to race with him at the front here. I'll try to do my part in the next one and qualify closer to the front so we can do that. But yeah, no, I mean it's cool kind of seeing the run he's been able to go on. I think we're still in pretty good form, coming from 13th to 3rd, and clearly left a little bit of pace on the table. I'll take where we ended up.
All right, well listen, congrats on the P3 tonight. Congrats on your recent Road to Pro success, and we'll see you next week.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, that's Agno Phillip. Evan finishes P3 in that 94 machine.
And we'll move things now to the top step of the podium, where we are standing by with Peter Irons, and we'll kind of take the names as we get them. Trackside with your race winner tonight. It is a 3rd win in 2024 for Peter Irons. Peter, congratulations on the win. You didn't see Kevin King a ton tonight, but you two had storylines that were intertwined. You with the one-stop strategy, him with the 2, and it almost got real close at the very end.
Yeah, it was, coming in, you knew Kevin was the one to beat. He messaged me earlier saying he's going to be able to show up for this one, so that got me excited. It's always fun racing against him. Yeah, so his 2-stop I thought was a little bit better, just because he was able to be on the attack instead of I was on the defend when he was coming. I just had to react to him coming a lot more pace. So I really thought he was going to be able to get me at the end, but thankfully I saw him beating me by 3/10, and it slowed down to 2, then by 1, and then before I knew it, I was getting on him on the back end. So I think he was pushing way too hard trying to catch me, but he also kind of had to with the big lead ahead. So I'm grateful that I was able to get out that far early on and not let the 2-stop strategy beat me.
And when you guys were on the same strategy, at least early in this one, you started to pull a bit of a race lead out, and he had kind of a long battle with Cody Harris trying to pass him. At that point, by the time Kevin fell back to 3rd, you had built a 5-second advantage. So it kind of nets out evenly, in the words of Agno Phillip, where you finished, just shy of about 5 seconds ahead of him. Was there any thought on your part to go for the 2-stop strategy off of the bat? Did you have any indication that he was going to go for that? Because it was really just Kevin and maybe 1 or 2 other cars that opted to go for the 2-stopper.
My thought is, with the halfway bonus, you kind of have to 1-stop it. My mind coming in is halfway bonuses at 100 at the end of lap 100, so it'd be 101. So once you hit that halfway bonus, I'm going to pit, and that's right about halfway, so that works out perfectly. But for Kevin, he's coming in with the mindset that he has nothing to lose. So that opens different strategy like the 2-stop for him when the race wasn't going his way. he played a good hand and created a 2-stop race instead of a 1. So that was a surprise to me because I was always thinking lap 101 you pit because you're past that way bonus. That was my mindset.
We've got 3 wins, and there are 3 races left before the postseason. Michigan, Daytona, and Darlington. We'll start first with the Michigan International Speedway. Coming up next, 2-mile D-shaped oval, the only one of such on the calendar, with Montana no longer part of the regular rotation. So it's a bit of a unique challenge. What are going to be some of the things that you need to focus on to be good there?
Well, it is a new challenge, so thankfully I won't have to focus on any challenges because I'll be on vacation. But for the drivers that are going to be there, it's going to be really challenging trying to manage your own race, but manage track position as well. Because with how strong the draft is in these cars, and the way iRacing has a little stronger in real life, so you need to really take care of yourself. Well, trying not to be too aware of the people that are running the top, making lap time, and racing to the front. So you kind of want to have track position, but you also want to save your tires. It's a really tough balance, a really tough racetrack, and I'm going to have so much fun watching it.
That's some good tips for those who will be there, and we'll look forward to having you back for the next time out. But as always, Peter, sponsors, shout-outs to folks behind the scenes. Who makes it happen for you here on a Monday night?
Yeah, family first, of course. I had my birthday yesterday, so that was a lot of fun to celebrate. Unfortunately, we had some little hiccups in the plans, but it was a really fun day. So I really appreciated them for that day. And they just gave me the opportunity to race today, keep me weather aware. We had a few tornadoes that were nearby, so they kept me a touch for that, trying to avoid the power from going out. And then just supporting me as well. Vantage Racing, I know, does a lot for me. I thought it was funny that they posted a GIF, or not really a GIF, a meme in the Discord, so that was pretty funny. And I just appreciate them watching and supporting. Brandon, with Vantage Racing as well, had a really good day. I want to shout out him. He was incredibly fast a long run. I was running 24 zeros to finish the race, and he was in 23 sevens. So that was pretty crazy to see from Brandon. I want to shout out him for that.
Well, happy belated birthday. Glad you get to celebrate this one with a win. Enjoy the vacation, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you. I sure will.
It's your race winner here tonight from Richmond. We'll continue our dance around the podium with your runner-up tonight, Kevin King, who's with Derek.
Well, I think the story of the night in a lot of ways, Kevin, was you. You finished P2, but everyone seemed surprised by this 2-stop strategy that you pulled off. So did you know coming into the race that was the plan all along, or when did you decide to do this 2-stop call?
Well, I was able to race this morning, so that was fun. I saw that open up my calendar, but I think it was like a lap 50. I had flashbacks to Phoenix where I thought a 1-stop would work, and I was like, wait, let me try a 2-stop. I wonder if that would work. And I probably didn't do it 100% correctly. What I should have done the second time in my mind, I was like, I should have just taken 2 and closed up, 6 seconds, and I think that would have been the difference. But I just had to try something different. I didn't feel too great out there. Like the speed was okay, but the long run was definitely lacking. So I was like, no, let me try this. And when it kept going green, I was like, wait a second, this actually might work. But then I had an idea that it was probably going to taper off there at the end, which obviously it did. But it's fun. I mean, hopefully it was a little different than everyone else. I was like, okay, at least I'll get second out of this, I guess.
I think from the interviews we've done, Evan and I've done tonight, you're going to maybe be a trendsetter here. A lot of people were surprised by how well it worked and went, darn, I should have done that. So what a great run there. But a lot of great battles tonight, a lot of great side-by-sides. You and Cody Harris fought it out for a while. So a lot of drivers said this track was slick and difficult to pass, but you didn't seem to have many problems out there.
Yeah, it definitely was. I didn't get a lot of time to try to figure out the brake stuff, but I mean, I felt like okay on entry, but I think for whatever reason, I was just a little too tight on entry and then I just put too much wheel mid-corner and it got loose off the corner. So the typical push loose scenario happened to me long run. But yeah, I mean, Cody was definitely fast. I was trying to see if the line he was running would work for me. And then I think one lap he just kind of rolled by me and I was like, okay, he obviously has better tires. So didn't try to fight him too much. Peter was basically gone at that point. So it was fun. I mean, besides, not really having the pace, I'm not one to try the super crazy strategies. I'm always very conservative with this stuff, so it felt good to kind of put that out there and see if it would work. Obviously, a lot of things had to go my way, meaning 200 laps going green had to go my way, but it did. So appreciate all the guys for giving the room and having a green flag race. That was really fun. Definitely need to go to work a little bit because I want to be a little bit better than that long run. But yeah, Peter was super fast. I know he put a lot of time in for the race, and it definitely showed. But yeah, I had fun. I mean, racing some of these guys is it's always fun.
All right, I'm glad to hear that. So our next 3 tracks up: Michigan, Daytona, Darlington. When is our next Kevin King sighting in RSR?
It's a good question. I'll have to check. I mean, I tried to get here a couple of weeks ago, and then work just prevented me. It's hard for me sometimes to get here when it starts if I have an open slot. So if I have an opening and I'll just leave work a little early and try to show up again. It's usually like the day of that I seemingly know, but sooner than later, I always check. Hopefully Evan knows that I check every week to see if I can make it, because I definitely want to come out here and support these guys. You guys do a great job. The broadcast is amazing. Evan's obviously one of the best to ever do it in the broadcasting side of things, so I definitely like to come out here, race Agnell and Cody and Peter and the rest of the guys. So I hope to be back sooner than later, but we'll see.
All right, well, listen, great job tonight. Anyone you want to give a shout out to or give thanks to for making things happen for you?
Yeah, you guys, first and foremost, for putting on the league for all these guys. I watch as much as I can. I check out the broadcast and keep in tune for what's going on. So I know Agnell's still pretty dominant, but Peter's coming on strong. My buddy who owns Rev Grips, anyone who likes mountain biking or things of that nature, he owns a company that produces these cool little grips at revgrips.com. Go check them out. It's a local guy here in San Diego. But really just all the guys who continue to support the league, broadcast crew and all that fun stuff, and you guys do an amazing job. So can't wait to go back and see kind of how this thing played out in the broadcast side of things, and hopefully I can see you guys pretty soon.
All right, well, listen, great job tonight, P2, and we'll see you sometime in the future.
Thank you.
All right, that is Kevin King, finishes P2 in the 29 machine. Had a great run.
Indeed, he did, and it's fun to know. We were kind of thinking out loud and hypothesizing. Was that decision to go for the 2-stop call a bit of an audible mid-event? Seems like he more or less said the same, right? That he didn't have the pace needed off the bat, wanted to mix it up, and almost walked it off with one of what would have been, I think, one of the great strategy pulls of all time, because you just don't see 1 or 2 cars splinter off and have a chance to win the race like that anymore, and still ends up for a good result as he ends up in P2. To your point, it's the Iron Age, though, as Peter Irons is now a 3-time race winner. He's peaking at the right moment, and while he will not be there, everybody else heads to Michigan International Speedway next time out and opens the door with the lack of a Peter Irons for maybe somebody else to find a victory lane.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what happens, but a lot of fun racing, a little bit of drafting, big, wide open racetrack, 2, 3, 4 wide racing. It's probably on the docket 1 week from tonight.
And we're looking forward to having you joining us then. But until next time, that is it for us here tonight from Richmond. On behalf of our entire team at RealSimRacing, RaceSpotTV, and our broadcast team tonight, for our producer downstairs, Joshua Believe, for Derek Watson and myself, Evan Pasoko, want to say thanks for tuning in, and congratulations to Peter Irons, who's once again a Monday night race winner. We're back next week on Monday, August the 12th at iRacing's virtual Michigan International Speedway. That race and every race of the 2024 Full Throttle RealSimRacing Cup Series can be found exclusively here on RaceSpotTV. Till next time, good night from Richmond.